thin line between doing comedy, becoming like this old fart like Pat Cooper, who's angry and hates the world. Which I do. I do hate the world. I like most people who have any brain should hate the world. I think the human race has let us down on every level. But you know, like Carlos Mencia, for example. You know, here's a guy that I was telling you before, just steals material. And I think the first 2 chapters of my book, I mean, I like the guy. I mean, he's a nice guy, but a lot of people don't understand. Well, every comedian steals, or you're just bitter because he makes more money. No, he's just, you know, it's something you shouldn't do in my business. So anyway, and I started coming up with these stories. And I was thinking that, I mean, radio. I mean, you guys probably can't, you can probably nod your head in agreement, or you wind up like the country station with your picture off the wall. I love Clear Channel. I love the fact you guys can have comics on the radio. But it's harder and harder for comics to get on the radio now because of this people meter thing. And if people don't know about that, you guys are, every second you have somebody like me talking, and every second you're not playing this song, and every second you're not mentioning the sponsor. So all the creativity has been sucked out of your lives. And you're doing a great job considering. You know, what you have to work with.
It's crazy business.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a whole chapter about radio because I've done so much radio. And it goes back to this guy, Alex Bennett in San Francisco, and Howard Stern, way before Sirius XM. And I've done so much radio, and I realize how difficult it is for you guys. And there's so many great radio stations. And, by the way, I'm not going to mention you in the book. Here's my problem. No, this is a great radio show, but here's my problem. If I mention you guys on the radio, then of course there's Mancow in Chicago, and DeBell in Philadelphia, and then there's my friend Lanigan in Cleveland. Then you got Paul and Young Ron in Miami. I could go on with 95 radio stations. So if I don't mention them all, then somebody's going to get mad. And if I don't mention you guys, you don't plug my book. So I'm screwed here.
You are. I don't know what to do. It's going to be a failure.
But radio's a whole other ball game. It's like television now. You know. There's so much crap on TV, and it's not just reality shows, but everybody says, well, you know, if you do the Tonight Show, you do this show, you do that show. It doesn't matter anymore. You know, I was in New York last year and did the Jimmy Fallon show, and Jimmy, it goes great. Jimmy goes, you got to go see Bobby, and they get 4 calls. You know, people watch this stuff days later, and people listen to radio, you know, days later. Now you have this internet radio.
Podcasts.
The podcast. Which, by the way, I'm doing one next month with John Lovitz, who's literally, technically, legally insane. And,
he's also been on the show.
We know. But you know what? Being married to my wife for 24 years, if I can handle that, I can handle anybody. I could, you know, I could ride the bull in a gay bar if I had to.
Wait a second.
Anyway, that came up. I just made that up.
But it sounds like something you would like to try.
Not again. Not anymore. It's a new Bobby.
And I apologize for not knowing this. Did you ever do Carson?
Yeah, I did the Carson show one time. Yeah, you know, by the time I did the Johnny Carson show, and I bet half your listeners don't even know who he is anymore.
Yeah, when you said Carson, I went, Carson Daly?
No, Johnny Carson.
You know, I did the Johnny Carson show once. This is a story of my life. But I did it, it's every comic wanted to do the Johnny Carson show.
Right.
And Letterman's great, and Leno's great, but the Johnny Carson show was before there were a million. He was the man.
When you made Carson, you made it.
Yep.
But here's the thing. What happened was, he started putting on so many comics, and before me, you know, before I went on, you know, there were a lot of guys that, you know, you go to the Johnny Carson show and the networks start calling. By the time I did it, Johnny had 1 year left to go. I did the show, and it was a great shot, and it should be a great shot. You're doing stand-up comedy for 10 years, and you were in the Johnny Carson show for the first time. If you don't have 6 minutes, you know, I mean, I've been doing stand-up for 30 years, and people go, well, you're really good at this. I go, well, 30, you're doing anything for me. Whether it's selling shoes, you better be the best. I mean, just retarded. You can't use that word. Sorry, retards. I'm using
Okay.
We can't say. But see, to me, it's like the F word, not the curse word, but the gay word, which, you know, I don't want to bring up because that's a word you can't use anymore because I want to, you know, produce the Oscars next year. If I use that word, I'm going to have my shot. But when I did the Johnny Carson show, it goes great. And I'm looking over at Johnny, and he's got his tie in his mouth, and he's cracking up. And the next day, I think Bud Friedman from the Improv and my mother called. You know, it didn't matter anymore. So they said to me, I said, I want to come back to the Johnny Carson show. 2 days later, he announced his retirement. And everybody in showbiz wants to get on the show. But like I said, you know, but let's get back to me.
Okay.
So, I'm doing the Comedy Palace at the Indian Casino in El Cajon.
Sycuan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow and Saturday, the one right down here on one of the mesas, Claremont, Kearney, whatever mesa you pick a mesa, any mesa.
We'll go with Claremont Mesa.
I'm working on a new Showtime special, and when my special came out, my last one 2 years ago, called Born to be Bobby, it just came out, got some nice reviews. So I go with Jake Johansson, who had 50 Lettermans under his belt. And he goes on Letterman and says, me and Bobby Slayton are teaming up. We'll go to Boston. We'll play a show. And I go on the Fallon show, and I go, me and Jake Johansson are doing this. And, we get a few people. There's nobody, because
Really?
people want to see, Carlos Mencia. They want to see.
I don't know about that. Now?
Well, there's so many there's comics now. People always ask me, who's your favorite young comic? And there's a lot of great guys. You got Bill Burr. You got a guy named Nick Griffin. And there's a dozen of them.
Sure.
But there's dozens and dozens of crappy, horrendous comics that you see on Comedy Central. Comedy Central, to me, they give out comedy specials like candy on Halloween to any idiot, to any
Really?
Mexican with two fat jokes. Who's that guy? What's his name? Iglesias.
Gilbert,
Oh.
or
What's
is that
his name?
Gilbert Iglesias?
Who?
Is that his name?
Gabriel.
You know what? Nice guy. Good. I'm glad you're fat. I'm glad you're Mexican. I'm glad your parents are Mexican. I'm glad you grew up in L.A. and I'm glad you're fat. Over and over and over. And all the fat Mexicans show up to see him, and he's a big star.
Wow.
10 minutes of material. But that's what people want.
Yeah.
And that's why the Jersey Shore and Toddlers and Tiaras, they're train wrecks. They're car wrecks. But people want to see this. It's mind-boggling.
So what are we going to get out of Bobby Slayton show? You're fat and Mexican?
You know what? There's nothing about my show that I can really, I just hate everything. So everything. And by the way, see, it's like vampires. I come home the other day. My daughter's sitting on the couch with her idiot, retarded boyfriend, and they're watching this Twilight crap. And I guess vampires now. I'm sorry if I'm getting old here, but you know what? It's not just me. Vampires, they don't go to high school, wear hair care products, they don't sparkle, okay?
They don't?
And they don't use teeth whitening products.
Right.
Vampires come out at night, they sleep all day, and then they come out at night and kill you, like black people. And what they do...
Bobby, no! No, Bobby! No, I'm sorry, Iman. I apologize.
Iman is laughing. She's laughing the hardest out of
She's
everyone.
black, and she's retarded. She's never been retarded black people love me. That's what they love me, the retarded. And women.
Bobby,
She nailed all three.
Retarded black bloods. Yeah, okay, I got everybody. See, I can sound like a sharpshooter. I can piss off
You offended everybody.
3 words.
That's great.
Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, more about me.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, let me tell people how to get tickets to the Bobby Slayton show. You can call 858-573-9067 or go to thecomedypalace.com and you can find out all the information about Bobby Slayton's
Yeah.
shows.
I think tonight they're doing the grand opening at the casino.
That's cool, man.
How do you pronounce it again?
Saquon.
Saquon. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't wanna,
I'm a card member.
those are the people I don't want to get mad. The Native Americans.
Will you gamble when you're out there?
I pretty much gamble with my wife every time I go on stage.
Oh, okay.
The kind of material that I do. You know, it's interesting. I was in Vegas for 2 years, and 3 years that I was working. I was never much of a gambler. I spent all my money going out to eat.
Really?
Yeah.
So you don't have a
That's a good
game
place to
that's
do that.
your game? You're not a card guy or...
I'm not a card guy. I spend money. See, now I'm drained dry on money because you get the holidays. Next week's my 24th wedding anniversary, and to buy stuff for my wife, and she's not one of these I want diamonds kind of a chick, but it's like just shopping for you is not easy.
It isn't.
My wife didn't know what to get me for Christmas, and I don't really want anything. I just bought myself an iPad to finish writing my book, and I'm not a big a gizmo kind of guy.
Right.
And the iPad, I see why people say it's the greatest thing ever invented in the world, so I get one. And my wife says, well, now I don't know what to get you. And I said, well, first of all, you weren't going to spend that kind of money on an iPad.
Yeah.
She said, well, I want to get you something for the holidays. And I said, you know what I could use? A keyboard for my iPad. I think they're $100 at Apple or Brookstone. Give me a
Perfect.
keyboard. See, but my wife, like a lot of women, I'm not saying you ladies in this room, but my wife's one of the people, I don't want to buy you something you would buy yourself. And see, that mentality. My wife, I go, what do you mean you could buy that yourself? I want to buy
I've heard
something you
that,
would never buy.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to explain to this female mind, if I wouldn't buy it for myself, that means I don't want it.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
They don't think like that.
They
though.
don't think that way.
Yeah.
And now with my anniversary coming up, 24 years of this hell. But, I love my wife, and she's probably listening. So, my own mother, who called me Hitler when I was a kid, and I'm Jewish. My mother called me Hitler. Hey, Hitler! I swear to God, we're Jews. So you know what a monster I was.
Oh my God.
Hitler! No R. Hitler! Hitler! Robert.
That makes it worse.
Yeah. Actually, I'm very proud of that. But my mother said to me the other day, your wife should get an award. She's a saint for being married to you. This is my own mother. And then she says to me, she's a gift from God. That's what my mother called my wife. A gift. She's my gift from God. And by the way, it's not too late to regift, is it?
Okay.
Hello, Las Vegas.
Here we are. Take my wife, please. All right. Here's the deal. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we may ask Bobby a question. I don't know. We'll see what
No,
happens.
come on.
Yeah, we'll do that coming up next.